Blood freezes in the void between stars, but Captain Mordian Kess has seen things that would make even frozen blood scream. His flagship, the Infinite Greed, drifts through the Coronis expanse like a metal cathedral gone mad, its hull scarred by weapons that shouldn't exist and patched with armor torn from alien vessels whose names are forbidden in civilized space. He stands on the command bridge, watching distant suns die through eyes that have witnessed the birth of demons, and wonders if this will be the day his luck finally runs out. The life of a rogue trader is measured not in years, but in the weight of sins carried and the price of survival paid. Every breath drawn in the darkness between worlds costs something that can never be repaid. Every decision made in the name of profit leaves stains on the soul that no amount of prayer can cleanse. And every day spent beyond the Emperor's light brings new opportunities to damn oneself in ways that would horrify even the most corrupt Imperial noble. Today, like every day for the past 30 years, Captain Kess wakes to the sound of his ship dying around him. The Infinite Greed is old, older than some Imperial worlds. Her bones forged in shipyards that have been dust for millennia. Her machine spirit is bitter with age and neglect, speaking in languages of grinding metal and failing systems that only the most skilled tech adepts can interpret. The air recyclers wheeze like dying men. The gravity generators flicker with the irregular pulse of a failing heart. The Geller field that keeps the horrors of the warp at bay operates at 60% efficiency on good days. And today is not a good day. "My lord," speaks Navigator Lucian Vex, his third eye wrapped in blessed silk that cannot hide the corruption seeping through the flesh around it. The warp currents ahead show signs of disturbance. Something vast moves in the deep waters, something that watches us with interest we would be wise to discourage. Kess nods without turning from the viewport. He has learned to trust Vex's warnings, though each prophecy costs the Navigator another piece of his sanity. The man has been serving House Kess for 12 years now, longer than most navigators survive in rogue trader service. His mind bears scars from sights that would drive normal humans to catatonia, and his body carries mutations that grow more pronounced with each warp jump. But he still functions, still serves, still guides their ship through the screaming chaos of the Imperium with skill born of desperation and maintained by constant exposure to horrors that would destroy lesser men. The bridge crew works around him with the efficiency of people who know that a moment's inattention can mean death for everyone aboard. Most of them are not quite human anymore, their bodies altered by years of exposure to alien radiations and warp phenomena that seep through even the best shielding. The weapons officer's left hand has been replaced with a mechanical claw, after an encounter with a creature that existed in too many dimensions simultaneously. The communications specialist speaks in binary cont, because her vocal cords were destroyed by psychic feedback from a distress signal that should never have been answered. The helmsman sees the ship's course through augmented eyes because his organic vision was burned away by light from a star that had been dead for 10,000 years. They are loyal because they have nowhere else to go. No other ship that would accept their mutations and modifications. No other captain who would trust them with duties that require absolute reliability despite their obvious corruption. They serve House Kess because the alternative is death, and they have all seen enough of death to prefer whatever future their service might buy them. Long-range scanners detect a vessel on approach vector, announces Tech Adept Vrain, her voice emerging through speakers because her throat now houses machinery that regulates the ship's atmospheric systems. Configuration unknown, but mass suggests escort-class displacement. They broadcast no identification signals. Unknown vessels in the void are either opportunity or doom, with no middle ground between wealth and destruction. Every ship encountered beyond the Emperor's domains carries the potential for profit or catastrophe in equal measure. Pirates seek easy prey. Aliens guard territories with weapons that violate physical laws. Chaos cultists spread corruption through contact and communication. And sometimes, worst of all, other rogue traders compete for the same resources with methods that make open warfare seem civilized by comparison. "Battle stations," Kess orders, though his crew was already moving to combat positions before he spoke. They have learned to anticipate his decisions through years of shared danger. Their survival dependent on response times measured in heartbeats. "Weapons online, but do not target until I give the order. We are merchants first, warriors only when necessity demands." The approaching vessel resolves on the main display as something that should not exist. Its hull configuration follows no known imperial pattern, yet its construction methods show clear human origin. Adamantium plating covers a framework of blessed ceramite and reinforced plasteel. But the proportions are wrong, the angles too sharp. The overall design, speaking of influences that no loyal servant of the Emperor would acknowledge. It moves with purpose but not aggression, maintaining distance while broadcasting a signal on frequencies that make the bridge servitors writhe in their interface cradles. "They're trying to communicate," reports the communications specialist, her mechanical voice carrying undertones of distress. "The signal is complex, multiple layers of encryption, but underneath I'm detecting human speech patterns. They know Imperial codes, my lord, but they're using them in ways that shouldn't be possible." Kess considers his options while watching the unknown vessel match their course and speed with precision that suggests advanced targeting systems. They could flee, but the infinite greed is not built for running. Her engine's powerful but not fast compared to purpose-built raiders. They could fight, but their weapons are designed for trading disputes and pirate encounters, not battles against ships of unknown capability. Or they could listen, though communication beyond the Emperor's light often carries prices that are only discovered after payment has already been extracted. "Open a channel," he decides. "Standard Imperial greeting protocols, but keep the transmission tight, beam and monitor for any sign of psychic interference." The response comes immediately, as if the other ship had been waiting for exactly this decision. The voice that emerges from the communications array is human, but wrong in ways that make the skin crawl. It speaks with perfect Imperial pronunciation, using proper forms of address and protocol. But underneath the formal words runs a current of something that has never been human at all. "Greetings, Captain Kess of the vessel Infinite Greed. I am Captain Valdris Thorn of the independent merchant vessel Pale Redemption. I request permission to come alongside for purposes of trade and mutual benefit." The words are correct, but they emerge from the speakers with harmonics that cause pain in the listener's ears. Several bridge crew members show signs of distress, their bodies reacting to frequencies that bypass normal hearing to affect the nervous system directly. Even the servitors show increased agitation, their mechanical components sparking as they attempt to process input that violates their programming parameters. "He knows your name," Navigator Vex observes, his third eye bleeding through its silk wrapping. "He knows our ship's designation. This information was not broadcast in any signal we transmitted." The implications settle over the bridge like a burial shroud. In the void between stars, knowledge is power and anonymity is survival. Ships that know too much about vessels they have never encountered before represent threats of the highest order. Either they possess intelligence networks that span the galaxy, or they have access to sources of information that exist outside normal space and time. "Captain Thorn," Kess responds, his voice carefully neutral. "Your reputation precedes you, though I cannot recall our previous meeting. What manner of trade do you propose?" The laughter that emerges from the speakers is the worst part of the entire exchange. It carries genuine amusement, as if the speaker finds something genuinely funny about the situation. But it also carries undertones of hunger, anticipation, and something that might be satisfaction at a trap successfully sprung. "Oh, Captain Kess, we have met before, though you may not remember the encounter. Time moves differently in the spaces between spaces, and memory is often the first casualty of extended exposure to the deeper currents. But I remember our last conversation quite clearly, and I have been anticipating this opportunity to conclude our business. The bridge falls silent except for the background hum of failing systems and the occasional spark of overloaded equipment. Every member of the crew focuses on their duties with the intensity of people trying not to think about implications too horrible to contemplate. In the Coronis expanse, encounters with vessels that remember meetings that never happened usually end with entire crews vanishing without explanation. Their ships found drifting empty in the void with no sign of what became of their human components. "I'm afraid I have no memory of our previous meeting," Kess replies. "Perhaps you could refresh my recollection of our business arrangement." "Certainly. You promised me something, Captain Kess. Something precious. Something irreplaceable. The debt has been accumulating interest for quite some time now, and I have come to collect what was agreed upon." The words hit him like a physical blow, triggering memories that he has been suppressing for reasons he cannot quite recall. Fragments of images surface in his mind. A different ship, a dying crew, decisions made in desperation that carried prices he had not fully understood at the time. The details remain fuzzy, obscured by psychological defense mechanisms that his mind has constructed to protect itself from knowledge too dangerous to retain. But the emotion comes through clearly. The sick certainty that he has indeed made an agreement with Captain Thorne, that the terms of that agreement were not fully explained at the time, and that the payment demanded will be far worse than anything he could have imagined when the deal was struck. What did I promise you?" he asks, though part of him does not want to know the answer. "Your soul, Captain Kess. Your eternal soul, freely given in exchange for the salvation of your crew during the incident at Harrowing's Edge. The transaction was witnessed and recorded according to the proper ceremonies. The contract remains valid and enforceable under the ancient laws that govern such arrangements. The name Harrowing's Edge unlocks a cascade of suppressed memories that wash over him like acid. The infinite greed trapped in a gravity well that should not have existed. Her engines failed and her hull cracking under stresses that violated known physics. His crew dying around him as systems failed and life support began to collapse. The impossible choice between certain death and accepting help from a source that he knew could not be trusted. He remembers now. The desperate bargain struck in the depths of space with a being that wore human form but spoke with the voice of something that had never been human at all. The promise of salvation for his crew in exchange for a payment to be collected at a later time. The certainty that he was damning himself, but the inability to watch his people die when alternative existed, no matter how terrible the ultimate cost. The contract was fulfilled, Thorne continues, his voice carrying satisfaction at the recognition he sees in Kess's face. Your crew was saved. Your ship was restored to operational status. You were delivered to safety as agreed. Now the payment comes due, and I am here to collect what was promised. Around the bridge, his crew watches with the horrified understanding of people who have served long enough to recognize the signs of supernatural entanglement. They know that their captain has made deals that extend beyond normal commercial arrangements, though they have never questioned the sources of the miraculous rescues and impossible escapes that have kept them alive through decades of dangerous service. Now they see the price of their survival written in their captain's face, and they understand that everything they have accomplished since that day at Harrowing's Edge has been borrowed time. And if I refuse? Kess asks, though he already knows the answer. Refusal is not possible. The contract was made freely, witnessed properly, and sealed according to the ancient laws. Your soul belongs to me, Captain Kess, just as the souls of your crew belong to you through the bonds of service and loyalty. I could take you now and be within my rights to do so. The words hang in the air like smoke from a funeral pyre. Everyone on the bridge understands that they are listening to the conclusion of a bargain that has shaped their lives for years without their knowledge. Their survival, their successes, their ability to continue operating in the most dangerous regions of known space. All of it purchased with their captain's damnation. All of it built on foundations of corruption that run deeper than any of them had imagined. However, Thorn continues, I am not unreasonable. I am prepared to offer you an alternative arrangement, one that might serve both our interests more effectively than simple collection of the original debt. Hope flickers in Kess's chest, though he knows that hope in such circumstances is often more dangerous than despair. What alternative do you propose? Service. Your ship and crew enter my employ for a period of 10 years. After which time your soul will be returned to you and all debts between us will be considered settled. The work I offer is dangerous but not impossible, profitable but not without cost. You would retain command of your vessel and autonomy in most operational matters. You would simply accept my guidance regarding certain specific objectives and destinations. The offer sounds too good to be true, which in Kess's experience means that it probably is. But the alternative is immediate damnation, and 10 years of life, even life spent in service to something that should not be trusted, is better than eternity spent in whatever realm Captain Thorn calls home. What manner of service do you require? He asks. Exploration. There are regions of space that require investigation by vessels capable of independent operation. Places where imperial authority holds no sway, where alien influences have taken root, where the boundaries between reality and nightmare have worn thin. You will go where I direct, investigate what I specify, and report what you discover. It sounds almost reasonable, like the kind of work that rogue traders perform as a matter of course. But the way Thorn describes it carries undertones that suggest the destinations will be more dangerous than normal exploration targets, the investigations more thorough than standard intelligence gathering, and the discoveries more horrible than anything found in conventional space. What guarantees do I have that you will honor your part of the bargain? Kess asks. The same guarantee you provided when you made the original agreement. Your word as a servant of the Emperor and mine as a being of honor, however corrupted that honor might have become. We are both creatures of our word, Captain Kess, or neither of us would have survived long enough to have this conversation. The logic is sound, which makes it more disturbing than outright lies would have been. Kess looks around his bridge at the faces of his crew, seeing in their expressions the same desperate hope that he feels himself. They want him to accept the bargain, to buy them another 10 years of life and purpose, even though they understand that the work they will be doing serves interests that are fundamentally opposed to everything they claim to believe. I accept your terms, he says, knowing that he has no real choice in the matter. My ship and crew enter your service for 10 years, after which all debts between us are settled and my soul returns to my keeping. Excellent. The contract is sealed. Expect your first assignment within the week. Oh, and Captain Kess, do try to keep your crew alive during the coming missions. Dead servants are so much less useful than living ones, and I have grown rather fond of your particular combination of competence and desperation. The communication channel closes, leaving the bridge in silence broken only by the sounds of failing machinery and nervous breathing. The crew looks to their captain for guidance, for some sign of how they should process what has just occurred. They have heard their lives bargained away like cargo, their service sold to something that makes no effort to hide its inhuman nature. Resume normal operations, Kess orders, his voice steady despite the chaos in his mind. Set course for the designated coordinates and prepare for standard patrol duties. Whatever comes next, we face it as we always have, together. The crew returns to their duties with the mechanical efficiency of long practice, but the atmosphere on the bridge has changed. They all understand now that their survival has always come at a price, that their captain's seemingly impossible ability to escape from desperate situations has been purchased with something more valuable than money or material goods. They serve not just House Kess, but something darker, and they will continue to serve because the alternative is worse than whatever moral compromises their new employment might require. 3 days later, their first assignment arrives through channels that bypass the ship's normal communication systems. The message appears directly on Kess's personal display without triggering any of the standard security protocols, as if it had been placed there by someone with complete knowledge of the ship's internal systems. The target is a system designated Mortis Thule, located in a region of space that does not appear on any Imperial star charts. The mission parameters are simple: investigate reports of alien activity, determine the nature of any threats present, and retrieve specific artifacts described in attached data files. The mission duration is estimated at 60 standard days, and the compensation offered would be sufficient to fund major ship repairs and crew bonuses. It seems straightforward enough, the kind of exploration and recovery mission that rogue traders perform routinely. But the attached intelligence reports paint a picture of something far more complex and dangerous than simple alien contact. The system shows signs of massive technological activity despite having no recorded indigenous species. Energy signatures suggest weapons testing on a scale that would threaten entire star systems, and the artifacts requested for recovery are described in terms that make little sense according to known physics. "Navigator," Kess calls to Vex, who has been studying the stellar cartography data with increasing distress. "What do your instruments tell you about this destination?" "The coordinates are accurate, my lord, but the space around them is troubled. The warp currents in that region flow in patterns that suggest massive gravitational distortion, as if something vast is bending reality through its mere presence. The journey will be difficult, but not impossible for a navigator of my experience." "And the return trip?" Vex hesitates, his third eye weeping bloody tears through its silk wrapping. "That depends entirely on what we encounter at our destination, my lord. Some places leave marks on ships and crews that make return journeys problematic. I cannot guarantee safe passage home until I see what we are dealing with." The warning is typical of navigator pessimism, but it carries undertones of genuine fear that make Kess reconsider the wisdom of accepting this assignment. But the contract has already been sealed, and refusing to honor the terms would result in immediate collection of his soul. Better to face unknown dangers in the hope of eventual freedom than to surrender now and gain nothing for his damnation. "Prepare for warp translation," he orders. "All departments run full diagnostics before departure. This mission requires the ship to be operating at maximum efficiency." The preparation process reveals the extent to which the infinite greed has deteriorated during their years of service. Critical systems show wear patterns that should have resulted in replacement cycles long ago. But replacement parts are expensive and often unavailable in the regions where they operate. The crew has become expert at improvisation and temporary repairs, keeping the ship functional through ingenuity and desperation rather than proper maintenance. The warp drive shows particularly troubling readings, its containment fields fluctuating in ways that suggest imminent failure. The machine spirit that governs the translation process has developed quirks and preferences that make standard procedures unreliable, requiring constant negotiation and appeasement to maintain cooperative behavior. Even the Geller field generators, the most critical systems for safe warp travel, operate at efficiency levels that would be considered unacceptable for Imperial Navy vessels. But the ship holds together, as she always has, bound by prayers and loyalty, and the stubborn refusal of her crew to accept defeat. They translate into the warp with the same mixture of hope and terror that has carried them through hundreds of previous journeys, trusting in the Emperor's protection and their navigator's skill to see them safely to their destination. The journey through the warp takes 12 days of subjective time, though the relationship between shipboard chronometers and external reality becomes increasingly tenuous as they approach their destination. Navigator Vex reports disturbing phenomena in the deep currents, shadows that move independently of their light sources, sounds that emerge from empty space, and gravitational anomalies that suggest the presence of objects that should not exist. The crew begins to report unusual dreams during their sleep cycles, visions of vast machines consuming entire worlds, of cities built from living metal that screams in languages that predate human speech, of beings that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously and regard three-dimensional life with the contempt that humans reserve for bacteria. The dreams are too consistent across different individuals to be dismissed as normal warp phenomena, suggesting that something at their destination is already reaching out across impossible distances to influence their minds. When they finally translate back into normal space, the first thing they see is that the intelligence reports were incomplete. Mortis Thule is not a simple star system, but something far more complex and terrifying. The primary star burns with light that shifts through spectrums that should not exist, while the planetary bodies that orbit it show signs of massive artificial modification. What should have been worlds are instead geometric constructions of impossible size and complexity, their surfaces covered with structures that extend beyond the boundaries of normal space. "Emperor, preserve us," whispers the weapons officer, his mechanical claw sparking as it attempts to process targeting data for objects that exist in too many dimensions simultaneously. What did they build here? The answer becomes clear as their sensors gather more detailed information about the system. This is not a place where aliens have established a colony or built a research facility. This is something far worse. A location where the fundamental laws of physics have been rewritten according to principles that serve inhuman purposes. The geometric constructions orbiting the star are not buildings but machines, devices designed to process matter and energy according to equations that treat reality as a malleable substance rather than a fixed framework. Massive energy signatures from the third orbital position, reports Tech Adept Vrain, her mechanical voice carrying harmonics of distress. The readings suggest technology that operates on principles I do not recognize. Power generation exceeds anything in Imperial records, and the consumption patterns indicate industrial activity on a stellar scale. As they watch, sections of the modified planets unfold like flowers, revealing internal structures that stretch toward the center of the system. Streams of processed matter flow between the artificial worlds, carrying materials that have been refined down to the subatomic level and reconstituted according to alien specifications. The scale of the operation suggests a civilization with resources and capabilities that dwarf anything the Imperium has achieved, despite its 10,000 years of technological development. But there are no life signs anywhere in the system. No biological entities, no organic processes, no signs of the kind of activity that accompanies living civilizations. The machines operate with perfect efficiency but no apparent purpose beyond their own functioning. They consume matter and energy in vast quantities but produce nothing that serves any recognizable goal. "Take us in slowly," Kess orders, though every instinct screams at him to flee immediately from whatever this place represents. Maintain minimum power signatures and avoid any actions that might be interpreted as hostile. We are here to observe and collect specific items, not to engage in combat with technology we do not understand. The approach takes hours as they navigate between orbital constructions that shift and change while they watch. The artificial worlds reconfigure themselves continuously, their surfaces flowing like liquid while maintaining geometric patterns that hurt to observe directly. Several crew members report severe headaches and disorientation when they attempt to analyze the structural details. as if their minds are not equipped to process information about objects that exist in more than 3 dimensions. The artifacts they have been sent to retrieve are located on what their instruments designate as the 4th orbital body, though calling it a planet stretches the definition beyond recognition. It appears to be a solid geometric form approximately the size of Terra, its surface covered with structures that follow mathematical principles rather than architectural ones. The entire construction pulses with energy that follows patterns too complex for their analysis equipment to decode. "Landing coordinates received," announces the communications specialist, her mechanical voice carrying overtones of confusion. "The signal originates from the surface of the target body, but I cannot identify the transmission method. The information simply appeared in our navigation systems without passing through any of our receivers." The implications are disturbing but not entirely unexpected. Whatever built this place possesses technology that operates outside normal physical laws, making conventional analysis and precautions meaningless. They are dealing with something that can manipulate matter, energy, space, and time, according to principles that the human mind cannot comprehend. The shuttle bay preparations reveal the extent to which their equipment has been modified for operations in hostile environments. The atmospheric processors have been upgraded with filters designed to screen out toxins that do not appear in normal chemical databases. The life support systems include backup components that can function even when local reality does not conform to standard physical laws. The crew's environmental suits have been reinforced with materials that provide protection against forms of radiation that should not exist. Kess leads the landing party himself, accompanied by a team of specialists equipped for artifact recovery and hostile environment operations. They know that they are descending into something that has been designed by intelligences that regard human life as irrelevant, but they also know that refusing the mission would result in immediate forfeiture of their contract and collection of his soul by Captain Thorne. The surface of the artificial world defies description in terms that human language can accommodate. The geometric structures that cover it exist in a state of constant flux, their forms shifting between configurations that serve no apparent purpose beyond the demonstration of mathematical principles. The ground beneath their feet feels solid but responds to their movement in ways that suggest it is aware of their presence and adjusting its properties accordingly. The artifacts they seek are housed in a structure that might once have been a temple or laboratory, though its current form resembles neither. It exists as a series of interconnected chambers that fold in on themselves in ways that make navigation impossible using normal spatial reasoning. The team finds themselves walking through corridors that should lead back to their starting point, but instead open into vast spaces that could not possibly fit within the structure's external dimensions. "The architecture is non-Euclidean," observes the mission specialist, his voice muffled by his environmental suit's communication system. "The internal space does not correspond to the external measurements. We are dealing with technology that manipulates spatial relationships according to principles that our mathematics cannot describe. The artifacts themselves are even more disturbing than the structure that contains them. They appear to be devices designed for purposes that human understanding cannot encompass, their forms suggesting functions that exist outside the normal categories of tool or weapon or ornament. Each one pulses with energy that follows patterns too complex for analysis, and touching them produces sensations that bypass normal sensory perception to affect the nervous system directly. The retrieval process requires careful handling protocols developed through previous encounters with alien technology. The artifacts are isolated in containment fields that prevent direct contact while allowing for transport, though the fields themselves show signs of strain when exposed to the energy emissions. Several team members report psychological effects during the collection process. Visions of vast machines consuming entire galaxies, auditory hallucinations of voices speaking in languages that predate human speech, and tactile sensations of being touched by things that exist in dimensions beyond normal perception. They complete their mission and return to the shuttle with the required artifacts secured in specialized storage units. But the experience leaves them changed in ways that become apparent only after they have returned to the ship. The team members begin to display enhanced pattern recognition abilities, improved spatial reasoning skills, and sensitivity to energy fields that normal humans cannot detect. They have been modified by exposure to technology that operates according to principles their minds were never designed to comprehend. The journey back through the warp is more difficult than their outbound transit, as Navigator Vex reports that the currents have been disturbed by their activities in the Mortis Thule system. The deep waters of the Imperium show signs of awareness, as if something vast has taken notice of their presence and is considering whether their continued existence serves any useful purpose. The warp is watching us, Vex reports during one of his increasingly frequent consultation sessions. Whatever we encountered in that system has connections that extend into the realm of souls and dreams. I can feel it following us through the deep currents, measuring our worth according to criteria that I cannot understand. The crew begins to report more disturbing dreams during the return journey, visions of their ship being consumed by machines that convert organic matter into geometric patterns, of their consciousness being absorbed into vast computational networks that process thought as raw material for inhuman purposes. The dreams are vivid enough to leave physical effects. Crew members wake with marks on their bodies that correspond to modifications seen in their nighttime visions. When they finally return to normal space, they find a message waiting for them from Captain Thorne. The communication appears on their main display without triggering any of the ship's security systems, as if it had been placed there by someone with complete access to their internal networks. Excellent work, Captain Kess. The artifacts you recovered will be most useful for our ongoing projects. Please deliver them to the coordinates attached to this message and await your next assignment. I trust that you found your first mission educational regarding the nature of the work you will be performing in my service. The delivery coordinates specify a location in deep space where no stellar bodies should exist. When they arrive, they find a station of impossible design floating in the void, its structure following architectural principles that suggest construction by the same intelligences responsible for the modifications at Mortis Thule. The station is vast beyond comprehension, its internal volume sufficient to house entire fleets, while its external surface area would cover continents on habitable worlds. The transfer of artifacts is handled by beings that wear human form but move with mechanical precision that reveals their true nature. They are servants of whatever intelligence operates the station, their consciousness modified or replaced entirely to serve purposes that require absolute loyalty and perfect efficiency. They examine the recovered items with instruments that analyze matter at the subatomic level, before expressing satisfaction with the quality of the materials retrieved. Your captain serves well, one of them observes to Kess while the transfer is being completed. The modifications to your crew show proper integration of enhanced capabilities. They will be even more useful for future assignments as the improvements continue to develop. The statement confirms Kess's growing suspicion that their exposure to alien technology was not accidental, but part of a deliberate process designed to prepare them for work that requires capabilities beyond normal human limitations. His crew is being changed by their service, their minds and bodies altered to serve purposes that they do not fully understand. Their second assignment arrives before they have left the station, transmitted directly to their navigation systems by methods that bypass all security protocols. The target is a world designated Whisper's End, located in a region of space that exists at the boundary between the material universe and something else entirely. The mission parameters are similar to their first assignment. Investigate reports of unusual activity, determine the nature of any threats present, and retrieve specific artifacts described in attached data files. But the intelligence reports for this mission are even more disturbing than those for Mortis Thule. Whisper's End appears to be a world where the boundary between life and death has become negotiable, where consciousness persists in forms that should not be possible, and where the laws of biology have been rewritten according to principles that serve purposes beyond human understanding. The journey to Whisper's End takes them through regions of space that show signs of fundamental alteration. Stars burn with colors that exist outside normal spectrums. Planetary bodies orbit according to gravitational laws that include variables not found in standard physics. Even empty space itself carries energy signatures that suggest the presence of invisible structures built from materials that interact with reality in ways that normal matter cannot achieve. Navigator Vex reports increasing difficulty in reading the warp currents as they approach their destination. The deep waters of the Imperium show signs of contamination by influences that originate outside the normal boundaries of space and time. His third eye begins to bleed continuously during the final days of their journey, and his predictions become increasingly cryptic as if the future itself has become uncertain. The destination exists, he reports during their final navigation briefing, but it exists in multiple states simultaneously. The world we seek is both living and dead, both inhabited and empty, both real and imaginary. I cannot predict what we will encounter because the possibilities exist in superposition, until our observation collapses them into a single reality. When they translate back into normal space, they find themselves in a system where physics operates according to principles that make conventional analysis impossible. Whisper's End orbits a star that burns with cold fire, its light providing illumination without heat while casting shadows that move independently of their sources. The planet itself appears normal from a distance, but closer examination reveals surface features that shift and change while they watch. Cities rise from the planetary surface only to dissolve back into the landscape moments later. Vast forests appear and disappear according to rhythms that follow no natural cycle. Even the atmospheric composition fluctuates between readings that suggest a living world and measurements that indicate a dead rock floating in space. Life signs are inconsistent, reports the sensor operator, his augmented system sparking as they attempt to process contradictory data. I'm detecting massive populations that disappear when I focus the scanners on their locations. The readings suggest millions of inhabitants, but they exist only when I'm not looking directly at them. The landing party preparation requires equipment modifications that push the boundaries of their technical capabilities. The environmental suits must be configured to function in atmospheres that change composition without warning. The communication equipment needs shielding against influences that interfere with electronic systems through methods that have nothing to do with electromagnetic radiation. Even their weapons require adjustment to function against targets that may not exist in the same dimensional framework as the ammunition. The descent to the planetary surface takes them through atmospheric layers that should not be able to coexist in the same space. They pass through regions of superheated gases that coexist with zones of frozen water vapor, areas of corrosive chemicals adjacent to pockets of breathable air. Their shuttle's sensors provide readings that violate basic principles of fluid dynamics and thermodynamics. The surface of Whisper's End defies every attempt at systematic observation. The landscape exists in a state of constant flux, with features that appear solid and permanent dissolving at the moment of contact, while empty space suddenly develops the properties of solid matter. The away team finds themselves walking on ground that shifts between different materials with each step. Metal gratings that ring under their boots, soft earth that yields to their weight, crystalline formations that sing with harmonics when disturbed. The artifacts they seek are located in what appears to be a city, though the urban landscape follows no earthly pattern of development. Buildings exist in multiple architectural styles simultaneously, their forms shifting between different design principles as if they cannot decide which reality they belong to. Streets lead in directions that should be impossible according to three-dimensional geometry, while vertical surfaces show signs of having been walked upon despite their orientation. The inhabitants of the city are even more disturbing than its architecture. They appear to be human at first glance, but closer observation reveals that they exist in states that should not be compatible with life. Some are clearly dead, their bodies showing signs of decay and decomposition, yet they move with purpose and apparent awareness of their surroundings. Others appear to be alive but display no life signs when scanned with medical equipment. The population consists of beings that exist in quantum superposition, observes the mission specialist, his voice tight with strain as he attempts to apply scientific terminology to phenomena that defy scientific explanation. They are simultaneously alive and dead, present and absent, real and imaginary. Our presence here forces them to collapse into specific states, but the process appears to cause them significant distress. The artifact recovery mission becomes a nightmare of navigation through spaces that reconfigure themselves continuously. The team finds themselves walking through buildings that contain rooms larger than their external dimensions, climbing stairs that lead down while appearing to go up, and passing through doorways that open into spaces they have already visited despite leading in completely different directions. The artifacts themselves are specimens of biotechnology that operates according to principles that biology was never intended to accommodate. They appear to be living organisms, but they show no cellular structure when examined under magnification. They respond to stimuli in ways that suggest consciousness, but they display no neural activity that conventional instruments can detect. Some of them speak in languages that predate human development, while others communicate through methods that affect the listener's mind directly without requiring auditory perception. The collection process requires extreme caution as the team discovers that the artifacts are connected to the city's inhabitants through means that transcend normal biological relationships. Removing them causes visible distress to the population, with some individuals flickering in and out of existence as their connection to the artifacts is disrupted. The team completes their mission, but they leave behind a city full of beings whose existence has been fundamentally altered by their actions. The return journey to their ship reveals the extent to which the away team has been changed. By their exposure to Whisper's End, they begin to experience moments of existence in multiple states simultaneously, finding themselves in different locations without memory of how they traveled between them. Their biological signs become inconsistent, with medical scanners providing readings that suggest they are both healthy and severely compromised at the same time. The effect spreads to the rest of the crew as the artifacts are brought aboard the Infinite Greed. Systems begin to malfunction in ways that suggest the ship itself is being influenced by technology that operates according to principles beyond normal physics. The machine spirit becomes increasingly erratic, making decisions that serve no apparent purpose while ignoring direct commands from the technical staff. Navigator Vex reports that the warp currents around their ship have become contaminated by influences from Whisper's End. The boundary between the material universe and the Imperium has become permeable, allowing phenomena from both realms to interact in ways that threaten the stability of local space-time. The return journey requires constant course corrections as the navigation becomes increasingly unreliable. When they finally arrive at the delivery coordinates for their second mission, they find that the mysterious station has grown larger and more complex since their previous visit. New sections have been added using architectural principles that incorporate elements from both Mortis Thule and Whisper's End. suggesting that their artifact recovery missions are contributing to some vast construction project that spans multiple realities. The beings that handle the artifact transfer show increased interest in the crew's physiological changes. They conduct detailed scans of each team member, their instruments analyzing alterations that normal medical equipment cannot detect. Several crew members are selected for additional examination, though they return with no memory of what occurred during their absence. Your service continues to exceed expectations, one of the beings informs Kess during the transfer process. The evolutionary pressures of your missions are producing precisely the adaptations we require for the next phase of operations. Your crew is becoming something more than human, something better suited for work in realities that normal humans cannot survive. The statement confirms Kess's worst fears about the nature of their employment. They are not simply retrieving artifacts for unknown purposes, but are themselves being transformed into something that can operate in environments where normal human biology cannot function. Each mission exposes them to influences that modify their minds and bodies according to specifications that serve inhuman purposes. Their third assignment takes them to a location that exists at the intersection of multiple realities, where the fundamental laws that govern existence become negotiable through methods that require consciousness modification beyond normal human capabilities. The mission parameters are identical to their previous assignments, but the target represents a level of danger that pushes their transformed abilities to their absolute limits. The pattern becomes clear as they undertake more missions for Captain Thorn. Each assignment takes them to locations where reality has been modified according to alien principles, where they are exposed to influences that change them in ways that make them more suitable for operating in increasingly hostile environments. They are being evolved through controlled exposure to dangers that would destroy normal humans, their consciousness and physiology altered to serve purposes that they cannot understand but cannot refuse to fulfill. The crew of the Infinite Greed becomes something new with each mission, their humanity gradually replaced by capabilities that allow them to survive in realities where normal biological processes cannot function. They retain their memories and personalities, but they begin to think in ways that incorporate perspectives from multiple dimensional frameworks. Their bodies develop immunities to forms of radiation that exist outside normal physics, while their minds learn to process information that violates basic principles of logic and causality. Years pass in service to Captain Thorn, with missions that take them to the furthest edges of known space and beyond, into regions where space itself becomes optional. They recover artifacts that reshape reality according to the will of their users, encounter civilizations that exist in states of quantum superposition, and witness the birth and death of universes that exist for purposes that transcend normal concepts of time and causality. The Infinite Greed herself becomes transformed by their journeys, her hull incorporating materials that exist in multiple dimensional frameworks simultaneously, while her systems integrate technologies that operate according to principles beyond normal physics. She becomes less a ship than a mobile platform for existence in realities that normal vessels cannot penetrate, her machine spirit evolving into something that can navigate between different versions of physical law with equal facility. The crew develops abilities that allow them to perceive reality from perspectives that normal humans cannot achieve. They learn to exist in multiple states simultaneously, to travel between different versions of the same location, and to manipulate matter and energy according to principles that they understand intuitively despite their inability to explain them using conventional terminology. As their 10-year contract approaches its conclusion, Kess realizes that the transformation has been so complete that returning to normal human existence may no longer be possible. They have become something new, something adapted for purposes that extend far beyond the simple exploration and artifact recovery that their missions ostensibly required. They are tools in a vast project that spans multiple realities and serves goals that dwarf anything the Imperium has attempted. The final mission takes them to the heart of whatever Captain Thorn has been constructing with their help over the years. They find themselves at the center of a structure that exists in all realities simultaneously. A construct that serves as a nexus point for influences that shape the fundamental nature of existence itself. The artifacts they have recovered over the years are integrated into a vast machine that processes reality as raw material for purposes that consciousness can barely comprehend. "Your service is complete," Captain Thorn informs them as they stand at the center of the impossible construct. "Your contract is fulfilled and your soul is returned to your keeping as promised. But you should understand that the person who made that original bargain no longer exists. You have become something new, something better adapted for existence in the realities that are coming into being." The words carry truth that Kess can perceive with senses that he did not possess when their arrangement began. He has been freed from his supernatural debt, but he has also been transformed into something that serves purposes beyond the scope of normal human understanding. The choice to return to his old existence or to continue serving the vast project that has shaped his transformation is his to make. Looking at his crew, seeing the beings they have become through years of controlled evolution, Kess understands that there is really no choice at all. They have been changed too fundamentally to return to their former lives, and the universe they now perceive extends far beyond the boundaries of imperial space or human comprehension. They are explorers of realities that normal consciousness cannot access, servants of purposes that transcend the petty concerns of individual survival or material gain. The infinite greed sets course for destinations that exist outside normal stellar cartography, carrying her transformed crew toward missions that will take them further from human understanding with each passing day. They have paid the price of survival and discovery with their humanity itself, becoming something new in the service of purposes that span multiple versions of reality. Behind them, the construct continues its work of processing existence according to principles that serve goals beyond the comprehension of the civilizations whose realities are being modified. The Imperium of man continues its struggle for survival, unaware that the nature of existence itself is being altered by forces that operate on scales and timescales that dwarf human history. And somewhere in the void between stars, Captain Mordian Kess and his crew continue their journey into realities that normal humans were never meant to see, carrying with them the knowledge that the price of survival in the universe is often the transformation of everything that makes survival worthwhile. They are free, but freedom for beings like them means something entirely different than it does for normal humans. The lonely and dangerous life of a rogue trader has no ending, only transformation into something that can continue existing when humanity itself is no longer sufficient for survival in the realities that are coming into being. They serve purposes beyond good and evil, beyond loyalty and betrayal, beyond the simple dichotomies that define normal moral existence. In the end, they have become explorers of infinities that consciousness can barely encompass. Traders in commodities that include the fundamental nature of existence itself. The Emperor's light no longer reaches them, but they carry their own illumination into darknesses that light was never meant to penetrate. The universe is vast and full of wonders and horrors that human understanding was never designed to comprehend. But for those willing to pay the price of their own humanity, it offers opportunities for exploration and discovery that normal existence cannot match. The infinite greed and her crew have become something new, something adapted for realities where the old rules no longer apply. And in the depths of space between the stars, they continue their eternal journey toward destinations that exist beyond the boundaries of normal space and time, carrying with them the knowledge that survival and transformation are often the same thing, and that the price of existence in the universe is sometimes the surrender of everything that made existence meaningful in the first place. They are free, but freedom for beings like them carries responsibilities and opportunities that normal humans cannot imagine. They serve purposes that extend beyond individual concerns, beyond planetary systems, beyond the rise and fall of civilizations. They have become part of something larger than humanity itself. And in that service, they find a kind of meaning that transcends the simple struggle for survival that defines most existence in the universe. The stars continue to burn in patterns that serve purposes beyond human understanding, and the infinite greed continues its journey between realities that exist according to principles that consciousness can barely grasp. They are explorers, traders, servants of purposes that dwarf human history and human hopes. And they are free in ways that normal humans never can be, though that freedom comes at a cost that only beings like them can truly comprehend.